Hello and welcome. Happy Monday. Today is our Faith Intensive number 14. So I remember the first one that we did, and now we are going on number 14 today. So we are digging deep into faith and specifically into love, the last few of our faith intensives, and we are going to continue in love today. And we're going to do that for the next couple of faith intensives as well. And before we start, I want to just give you some ways to connect with us. So first of all, there is our Facebook, which is based on faith. Also, there is Instagram, which is official_based on faith. And we have our general email, which is info@basedonfaith.org, and our website, which is www.basedonfaith.org. And so I encourage you to go to our website and check out everything that we have there. We are continuing to add to our website all the time, and there's a good blog section with lots of really, really good articles, and we also have our store up and running, so we've got some good resources there as well. And again, go check it out. I'm sure you will like what you see, and hopefully it will inspire you as well and help you grow deeper in your faith. So today, again, this is Faith Intensive teaching number 14. And so today we're really going to concentrate in one chapter, and that is 1 Corinthians 13, which is known as the love chapter. And so this whole entire chapter talks about love. And so what we're going to do is walk through the chapter and pull out some really important keys that we need to first of all, we need to know about love, but that we can, as we go through our week, we can meditate on and help us to grow deeper in knowledge and in our relationship with God. And so first of all, let me ask you something. So I have this mirror here, and so I want you to think about someone that you love, or somebody that you just really, really want to be with, and so let's say your spouse or someone that you are maybe engaged to or going to marry, or maybe one of your children, or somebody like that you love, and it's a deep love that is, it's special, it's unconditional. This is more than a friend, and your heart is knit to that person. Okay, and so I want you to think about this. Let's say you have a mirror, and the only way that you can be with that person is through looking in the mirror and seeing their image reflected at you. All right, so let's say you really just want to be with that person, and what you have is a reflection in the mirror, okay, versus actually being with that person face to face. So is that gonna satisfy you? Is that going to, are you going to stop there in your pursuit of that person and being with that person? I think that if any of you can answer that truthfully, you would say that's ridiculous, that's silly, and no way, like I'm not going to stop, and I'm not going to be satisfied with a reflection of that person that I love and that I want to be with in the mirror. Okay, so the same is true with our relationship with God. And so what I want to do is I'm going to start here in the middle of 1 Corinthians 13. And we're going to read where this kind of imagery of looking at a reflection in a mirror is talked about. Okay, so it says now, and we'll go back and start at the beginning of this chapter, but I'm just going to kind of give you an introduction here. So in verse 12, it says, "For now we see but a faint reflection of riddles and mysteries, as though reflected in a mirror, but one day we will see face to face." Okay, and so the goal is to see God face to face. And in Numbers 12:8, if you go back to the Old Testament, God actually spoke to Moses face to face. And so that is very significant because we don't see God having a face-to-face relationship with anybody else. And so Moses stands out because he spoke to God face to face, and the Bible says face to face. In the Hebrew, that translates as mouth to mouth. So he's speaking, face to face or mouth to mouth, which is it's very personal and it's intimate. And so let's start back at the beginning of this chapter. 1 Corinthians 13. And so the first couple of verses, it leads us through. And what we'll see here is, there's these first couple of verses, and it tells us about these things that sometimes we get caught up in thinking about and we think are so important, but then it says, this is nothing if you have love or if you don't have love. And then it tells us in several more verses, a lot of characteristics of love. So what is love? And then it goes back and it talks about something in particular that is mentioned in one of the first few verses, and talks about how that, again, if we really have if we have the lens of God in terms of love and maturity, then we are going to see that we thought we wanted to focus on, or we thought that we, was so important, and we're going to see that that's immaturity, and really it is spoken of here as in terms of childish things, and we need to mature. And so we're going to go through. This is really it's a really good walkthrough of really how our carnal minds want to think unless they're renewed, and unless we transform our minds. And so, all right, let's start here then. I'm going to read the first 3 verses, and this is from the Passion Translation. So, "If I were to speak with eloquence in earth's many languages, and in the heavenly tongues of angels, yet I didn't express myself with love, my words would be reduced to the hollow sound of nothing more than a clanking cymbal." That's verse 1. Verse 2. "And if I were to have the gift of prophecy, with a profound understanding of God's hidden secrets, and if I possessed unending supernatural knowledge, and if I had the greatest gift of faith that could move mountains, but have never learned to love, then I am nothing." Verse 3. "And if I were to be so generous as to give away everything I own to feed the poor, and to offer my body to be burned as a martyr, without the pure motive of love, I would gain nothing of value. Okay, so let's stop right here. So verse 1, these things that are mentioned in these 3 verses are things that the human mind wants to elevate, and that in the world's way of thinking and doing and being are elevated. So if I speak eloquently, if I sound like I can speak and articulate well, if I'm charismatic in the way I deliver my message, sounds great, right? In the world's eyes. Wow, that person is such a great speaker. That person is so good on the platform and can speak so eloquently. But the verse 1 here, it says, but if that person, if that's me, and I don't have love, then my words are reduced. They're deflated. And to the hollow sound, so it's a hollow sound, it's not even full of anything, it's a hollow sound of a clanging cymbal. The second verse, it says, but if I have the gift of prophecy and a profound understanding of the mysteries of God and all sorts of supernatural revelation, which a lot of times in our circles, right, we are really intrigued by that, and we are pursuing that. And this goes on to say, even if I have the gift of faith and I can move mountains, but if I don't have love, it says I am nothing. Verse 3, if I'm generous, so if I appear, or if I even am generous, not even appear to be generous, and I give, and I give, and I keep nothing for myself, even if I give my life and my body, and I'm burned as a martyr, even for Christ, and that seems so noble and so holy, but if I don't have love, I gain nothing of value. And so in these 3 verses, one of the things I want to point out is, first of all, things that we elevate in the world system, they're not bad in and of themselves, but this says, but if I have all these things and I don't have love, then, it's not worth it. It's pointless. My speech is nothing. I am nothing, and I gain nothing of value. It says here in verse 3 that my motive, so it must be a pure motive of love, even when I give my life as a martyr. So my motive must be pure, and it must be love, period. So we learn here, we've talked about a lot of things about love, right? Love is a noun, love is God, God is love. What does love love? We talked about that in terms of John 3:16. So God so loved the world, so he loves people. He gave Jesus for us. Okay, and then we can also see here that love must be our pure motive. So love is a motive as well. Okay, of course God is love, so God would be our motive, right? But love is a motive. So let's look at verses 4 through 7. I'm just going to read through these because they're so good, but I'm not going to really go over any teaching. I want to really get to the last part of this chapter, but I feel like I can't get to the last part of the chapter unless we actually read through verses 4 through 7. And in a future teaching, we may go over verses 4 through 7 in more detail. So, first of all, verse 4 says, love is large and incredibly patient. And the one thing that I do want to point out about this here is the first characteristic of love is that love is patient. It goes through to talk about all sorts of other characteristics of love. Love is patient, love is kind. But the first one is love is patient. And, I believe that there is nothing that is coincidental in the Word of God, that it's all there specifically and in order for a purpose. And so I do think that it's worth thinking about and worth meditating, on this particular point, that the first characteristic that is mentioned here is love is patient. And so above other characteristics which we may look at, I think looking at patience in our lives and looking to see where are we impatient specifically, and asking the Lord to reveal why we are impatient in those areas and to fill us with love so that we can be patient. Okay, so love is large and incredibly patient. Love is gentle and consistently kind to all. It refuses to be jealous when blessing comes to someone else. Love does not brag about one's achievements, nor inflate its own importance. Love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seek its own honor. Love is not easily irritated or quick to take offense. Love joyfully celebrates honesty and finds no delight in what is wrong. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing the best for others. Love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up. Okay, so that's such a good few verses, and people, like to gravitate to those specific verses out of this entire chapter, and you hear those a lot at weddings and those kind of events. But excuse me, I really want to get to verses 8 through the end of the chapter, because there's a lot here. But again, I wanted us to read those because it's so good, especially in the Passion Translation. I just think that's so good. Okay, so verse 8 says, love never stops loving. Wow, love never stops loving. And we've talked about that before, how love is eternal. It never ends. God never stops loving us. His love will never end. It will never cease. It will never diminish. It will never increase. It is what it is. It's absolute pure love. And so love never stops loving. So in John 3:16, when we look to say, what is the object of love? Well, it's the world. It's us. So if love is loving us, this tells us that love never stops loving us. Okay, so I think we can extrapolate that here and say, for me, God will never stop loving me, ever. It extends beyond the gift of prophecy. So here we go back to that point number 2 in verse 2. It extends beyond the gift of prophecy, which eventually fades away. So here we find out that prophecy, see, some of these things that we think are so important, and they are good and they are important, but they don't trump love, right? Love is what we're going to see here. Love is what we should put above all else. So even prophecy will fade away, even tongues, which will one day fall silent. So that will cease. So that's not eternal. Love remains long after words of knowledge are forgotten. So words of knowledge, I hear people all the time, they want a word. Does anybody have a word for this person? Or, those kinds of things. And so I see a lot of seeking after words of knowledge. Those will be forgotten. Our present knowledge and our prophecies are but partial. So we see in part and we hear in part. That's where part of that is coming from this verse. So prophetic, prophetic is, it is very important, right? But we find out here that our prophecies are but partial. They're only in part. We have a piece of the puzzle when it comes to prophetic things. And it says, but when love's perfection arrives, the partial will fade away. So all these other things that we looked at here in verses 1 through 3, if I speak eloquently, if I have the gift of prophecy and profound understanding of God's hidden secrets, the greatest gift of faith, and I can move mountains, if I'm so generous and I keep nothing for myself, even offer my body to be burned as a martyr, all those things are temporal, right? Partial. They fade away, they end, and we've seen that here. They will fade away. So it says in verse 11. Now see, here's where it gives us this this analogy, which we can all understand. When I was a child, I spoke about childish matters, for I saw things like a child, right? Because you were a child. And I reasoned like a child. But the day came when I matured, and I set aside my childish ways. I think sometimes when we hear that verse, we don't quite know how to connect it back to the previous verses. But here we're going to see that in verse 12. For now we see but a faint reflection of riddles and mysteries. Okay? As though reflected in a mirror. But one day we will see face to face. This is the verse I read you at the very beginning. Okay? So this mirror here. Do you want to see a reflection of the one that you love? Do you just want to see a reflection of an image in a mirror, in a looking glass? Or do you want to be face to face and communicate, as it says in the Hebrew, mouth to mouth with that person? And here we're talking about God. So it says, my understanding is incomplete now, but one day I will understand everything, just as everything about me has been fully understood. Until then, there are three things that remain: faith, hope, and love. Yet love surpasses them all. So above all else, let love be the beautiful prize for which you run. And so that's the end of this chapter 13. It's so beautiful. So we see here at the end, it tells us, let love be the beautiful prize for which you run. So you're running your race. Paul talks about our life, and he talks about it in terms of running a race or a marathon, right? We're running, but what are we running towards? Well, this is telling us that the end prize should be love. We should run towards the beautiful prize of love. Okay, so we see that. So love is the beautiful prize. Now we see that. We've also seen today that it should be our pure motivation. And I'd say those are about the same thing. So a beautiful prize for which you run is also good motivation, right? It's pure motivation so that you end your race well. But let's look back here, and I want to talk a little bit more about this reflection in the mirror. So these three things at the beginning of the chapter that we've clearly already said, are not eternal. They're temporal. They don't last. They fade away. They end at some point. What it's saying here is that these a good way to think of it is these are childish, right? If we are only focusing on these things and have not love, so they're good if you have love, but if we only have these things and we don't have love with it, if we haven't set love above everything else and they haven't fallen in line in their proper place, then that's childish. It says that, that is seeing things like a child. It's reasoning like a child. So the thing is that if we're going to mature, the day is going to come when we need to mature and we need to set aside childish ways. So if we're mature, we don't hold on to childish ways. We don't keep thinking like a child. So when we mature, I've got a note here in my Bible. It says that's when love showed up, or we let love show up, right? And in terms of our relationship with God, so looking at trying to see God as a reflection in a mirror, that's immature. That's what this is saying. Immature, it's childish. That's like having the gift of prophecy but not having love. See, if we want to put the mirror away and we want to become mature and see God face to face and speak with him mouth to mouth, then we have love and we have set love above all else. We have made him be the beautiful prize for which we run. So if we have the gift of faith and we move mountains, but we don't have love, that's childish, right? We're looking through the mirror trying to see a reflection of God, right? Who wants to do that? That's childish. We need to put the mirror away and have a face-to-face relationship with God, right? If we, we think of Mother Teresa in terms of living, with no worldly possessions. If we are generous like Mother Teresa, but for ourselves, we don't have love. If we are burned as a martyr, if we give our life, our very life, and we're burned as a martyr for God, but we don't have love, we gain nothing of value. And this is saying, this is childish. This is childish because, again, even while we're being burned as a martyr and we don't have love, we're doing this. We're still looking in the mirror at a reflection, trying to see the reflection of God in the mirror. We have to put the mirror away and have a face-to-face relationship with God. So I think, this chapter 13 is so beautiful, and it goes through, and again, I think a lot of times we really focus on that verse 4 through 7, and those are beautiful, and we do want to go into those verses, but I don't want to neglect the verses that come before and after it, because I think there's so much in there. And if we are looking at love and we want to know love, about love, and we want to actually know him personally and for ourselves, not just saying, okay, well, my pastor knows him, I think, my pastor knows him, so I think I can ride on that. And, or, my grandmother, she really talked a lot about the Lord, so my grandmother was, or, as a child, my parents had me, dedicated as a child. So, I've kind of, been in the church my whole life or something like that. That is this right here. This is not a relationship with the Lord. This is not knowing him face to face. So I'm going to ask, do you know him face to face? Do you know him mouth to mouth? Or are you just looking at a reflection? You trying to, maneuver that looking glass so that you can see a glimpse of a reflection in that mirror. Because we need to put the mirror away. Why would we have a face-to-face relationship and still get the mirror out? Right? We can just look directly into his eyes and speak, face to face. So, I hope that this has been very, very eye-opening. I hope that you have gained some new insight, some new revelation. I'm sure that you did. I know I did. And this chapter is just full of really rich keys. It's full of rich life and love that speaks of the one that we love. This is his word, right? The Bible tells us that Jesus is the word. So, these are not just words on a page. This is him speaking to us. And so I just want to encourage you to, as you go about your day and as you go about your week, think about this mirror. Think about the mirror. Think about the relationship that you have. Think about how you can start to put this mirror away. How can we all start to put the mirror away and just have a face-to-face relationship with the Lord? Because that is maturity when it comes to love. And anything else is childish, right? So we're called to grow up. We're not meant to be children forever. And so the last part of this is, after all these temporal things fade, after they all go away, after they all end, it says, and these three things remain. It's faith, hope, and love. Of course, we've talked a lot about faith and hope. So hope is, for the future. Faith pulls those promises into the present. But love, it says, surpasses them all. So we can't even have faith and hope unless we have love. Love, it says, surpasses them all. So love actually supports faith and hope, and it undergirds them and gives them a foundation. And it also says that love is above, it should be above everything else. So above all else, let love be the beautiful prize for which you run. So as you run your race, as you go about your day, as you go about your week, don't lose sight of this prize, this beautiful prize, which is love. And that's what we have our eyes on. So we have our eyes, our vision focused on the prize, and all these other things we still have to do, and we want to do well, but we don't want to get our eyes off of love. And so we are going to end there today. And so I want to encourage you to connect with us again. We have some social media platforms, which I mentioned earlier, based on faith on Facebook, official_based on faith, which is our Instagram. We have our general email, which is info@basedonfaith.org. And our website, which is basedonfaith.org. I did not mention our YouTube channel as well, obviously. And we would like it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that way We know that this is encouraging, that these teachings are speaking to you and helping you grow deeper in your faith. But also there is a little bell to the right side. If you click on that drop down menu, there's an option you can select so that anytime we upload content, you will be notified, and so you won't miss anything that we upload for you. So until next time, which will be 2 weeks from today, I send you love and blessings. Bye-bye.